The next principle we're going to be looking at is flow. So flow simply refers to the visual and verbal passive movement in which the reader's eye tracks through a page, pages, or online designs such as banners or web pages. A layout with good flow will usually visually lead the reader from one element to another element, and it'll carefully present information to the reader. Planning flow into your document, whether it's a static page or a motion design document like a web page, allows you to better control the order in which your reader reads the points in your message. In order to develop strong flow in your message, you have to first understand the message. Thoroughly read the text and analyze how any graphics that you have available may support the message. Once you're clear about the purpose of the message, then you can visually establish the order in which the text and the images should be read. You can work out the flow of the message. In motion designs that play across time, you'll have to decide how and when the text and images appear on screen. Sometimes, after you review your text and images, you may have to supplement them with more graphics. You may have to add other graphic elements like bullets or dingbats, triangles, or line rules, just to help visually lead the viewer through the article, the page, the multi-page document, whatever it is that you're working on. There are two halves to the principle of flow. There's verbal and visual flow. Verbal flow is the order in which the viewer reads the text on the page, and visual flow is the order in which the viewer looks at images and graphics on the page. The best designs are going to draw on both of these types of flow, and they'll seamlessly integrate them together in a harmonious whole to present an ordered message to the viewer. Let's take a look at verbal flow. Verbal flow is how the text is arranged on the page and the order in which the reader reads the material. In Western cultures, people read from left to right and top to bottom. Not all cultures read a page in the Western manner. So if you plan on designing layouts for an international, audience, make sure that you know your target audience and take into consideration how they normally read a page before you go about constructing the document. Establishing and maintaining good verbal flow through a document is critical for communication. So how is good verbal flow achieved? Well, in general, you can achieve good verbal flow by using consistency in typographic treatment and establishing a logical reading path through your document. A document that has good verbal flow, because it has consistent logic to it, is easier for the reader to read than a document with poor visual or poor verbal flow. You want to try setting up a typographic master plan and using this as the fastest way to achieve good verbal flow. Your typographic master plan should include such details like the typefaces, the sizes, the colors, like what you're going to specifics that you're going to use on a headline, on subheads, on body copy, on picture captions, on pull quotes and charts and graphs. Detail things out like the column widths, the alignment scheme, the margin spacing that you want to use. If you plan ahead, you can consciously set up the flow in your document, and your designs are going to seem more unified and more consistent. And this is especially true when you're working with multi-page documents. Your reader is also going to benefit because a consistent typographic master plan is going to help them to follow the text through the document. And you can see if I mouse over here, here's the path that the reader is going to read. This is the flow, if you will, through this two-page spread. Let's go ahead and let's look at some techniques that you can use to enhance your verbal flow. These things are things that you can do to assist the reader in reading your document and to establish a good verbal flow. So you can try following visual and organizational techniques like these. You can place headlines near the articles. You can choose an easy to read serif typeface like Gairmond and use it consistently throughout the article. When an article flows into other pages, you want to keep the text treatment consistent, like use the same typefaces, the same type sizes, same leading, same color, same column width, so keep it unified. You want to use columns that are neither too wide or too narrow. You want to avoid extra wide leading or solid leading in body copy. You want to try to keep listed items together. You want to place quotes on a page with the text that they reinforce instead of several pages over. You want to keep captions with pictures and statistics with charts. And you want to place linked columns of text next to each other instead of intermixing the columns of text from two or more different articles. Visual flow is the other half of the principle of flow, and visual flow is the order in which the viewer looks at the images on the page or pages. On pages where text and images are intermixed, the viewer's eyes track a backward S pattern. So if we look at this example right here, this is the backward S pattern. Their eye enters from the upper left, and then it kind of swings down here from the right, comes back over here towards the left, and then exits over here towards the right. This is really useful to know because you can pick images and control or enhance the visual flow through the page. Because people in Western cultures tend to look at the right for their next bit of information, images that are turned towards the right seem to move forward naturally with very little effort. For instance, an animal running towards the right seems to easily speed forward, whereas the same animal that might be turned towards the left tends to move a little bit more slowly. So what this phenomenon means for a page designer is that the orientation of the image on the page can speed the viewer's progression or subtly slow it down. So you kind of need to decide what you want to do. You can also go ahead, in addition to considering that, the technique of orientating an image in a specific way, in a specific direction, will help lead the viewer into the layout. So a graphic or a person or thing, animal, whatever it is, if it's on the left and it faces to the left, it can lead the viewer right out of the layout. So if you turn the image so it's orientating in, so it's facing to the direction of important information, that draws the viewer's eyes back into the piece and it makes them look and read the content more precisely. So you can see here the dog's little face is looking this way, so our eye just kind of followed, like, what's he looking at? You just kind of wander over here. This one, he's looking into the banner ad, so your eye just naturally progresses through this. It's a much more comfortable way to actually read the example right here. You can also see how simple placements of ornamental images can influence the flow of the reader's eye across visual elements. The ornament to the left of the top image right here, it points to the text and it serves as a visual flow device. It naturally leads the viewer's eyes into the phrase. The same little dingbat is mirrored and placed at the end of the text in example 2 right here, and it subtly slows reading speed down and it influences the reader's eye to bounce back into the text. So you can easily use techniques like this to deliberately point towards important information and encourage the viewer to actually read it. At first glance, you might think that both of these layouts work. The only difference is that the direction that the girl faces. But after consideration, the bottom ad is definitely more successful. The girl's face brings you back into the ad and it helps complete the circular flow that's created by the artwork. So you can see, look at her, at her little thought bubbles, you look at the logo, and then you circle over here to the tagline, and then it just kind of brings you back around. In this ad, you kind of look to her and then you just like wander off the page. So it's really helpful and important to think about placement of images and how that's going to influence your layout. Professional graphic designers know that using illustrations, photographs, rules, lines, dingbats, fonts, or some sort of graphic in their pages allows opportunities to strengthen the flow of the page. If you repeat the visual element, it's going to unify a composition, whereas careful placement of those repeating elements is going to encourage an opportunity for the designer to direct the viewer's attention across the page. So even if you don't have a lot of images that are readily available, consider using simple graphics, just like, bullets, dingbats, simple shapes, lines, whatever. Even something as ordinary as an arrow can be treated with an interesting visual manner, and it can be used to direct the viewer's attention to the truly important points that are on the page. These simple graphics are usually used as visual flow devices, and they can lead the viewer down the page and to indicate important points. On layouts where it's important that your audience read information in a specific order, you can use a combination of simple graphic visual devices such as rules, lines, dingbats, or some sort of other graphic, and you can use these things to lead the viewer down the page If it's absolutely critical that your audience read information in a specific order, then go ahead and use numbers on it. It's okay to do that. Flow is not a principle that applies to just one page at a time. It in projects with multiple pages like newsletters, brochures, multi-screens like web pages or web banners or on-screen presentations, then setting up and sticking to a grid structure and a typographic master plan, it can instantly strengthen the principle of flow in the document. Multi-page documents are web pages that adhere to an underlying grid structure. They're going to have a coherent consistency and a unity that enhances the flow of visual and verbal information from one page to another. The pages are going to appear to flow because the consistent visual appearance of the multi-page document helps the viewer to kind of clue in on the system that's being used. A key to success of flow in multi-page documents is the simultaneous use of the principle of repetition. Repeating visual elements sets up a sense of unity, and it gives you something to spread around on the page and enhance the flow of the page. When you repeat visual elements on a page, you're drawing on the natural human tendency to seek patterns. Repeating visual elements on the page is a natural for strengthening flow because the eye is going to be attracted to repeating elements. Through careful placement of visual elements on the page, you can gracefully lead the viewer through your designs and present information in a controlled order, and this can be very beneficial. Let's go ahead and look at a couple of examples. The first one we're going to look at is this Black & Decker auto leveling ad, and it uses flow to its advantage to help solidify its message. You can see the reverse S that is kind of draws you into the ad and then leads you down through the important information that's presented. The little animals that are sliding off the crooked shelf, they really epitomize flow in more than one way. And it's pretty clever that the designer was able to take this approach for this ad and use flow so much and as such a strong principle. It really helps to bring home the message. The next example is the Nightmare Before Christmas poster, and this movie poster has flow in several different areas. The strongest use is apparent with the graphics that are being used. The spiral wave that the little skeleton is standing on, it curls into the ad and it leaves the viewer's eyes down into the Trello pumpkins right here. And these two use flow for placement and positioning. Your eye is led from this curl down into the pumpkins, and then it brings you to the front of the poster, and then you just kind of bounce to the right for the title right here. This also uses a nice complementary color scheme. It works really well. There's lots of contrast, and it basically works hand in hand with the principle of flow. This AT&T ad right here, it is laid out with obviously plenty of white space, and it really draws the viewer's eye into the center of the layout. The direction that the hand and the fish read elements face all help to keep the eye centered on the format. And because of the positioning of the tagline and the colors, the eye can easily kind of travel through the ad and they get the meaning right away. The unity is definitely achieved here and the message is immediately understood. But you definitely have a nice sense of flow going on with these graphical elements that are being used here. And our final example is a really strong example. It's this Infiniti EX35 ad, and it really takes an interesting approach to the principle of flow. The tagline basically says the industry's first 360-degree around view monitor, and the placement of the car and the use of the text help to illustrate this 360-degree capability. The margins that are used between the text and the boxes all act like kind of streets that are rushing towards the center of the format, and your eye is definitely drawn right into the most important aspect of the ad, the product shot. It's kind of interesting too how these blocks of text all look like arrows, then they're all pointing inward, but this is a really great example of flow. So now hopefully you'll be a little bit more aware of flow and you'll begin to use that more in your designs.